So this is just a little story for everyone over this festive period. It's a tale about a bitter, twisted fragrance entrepreneur who lived a long, long time ago in a different world, a world covered by snow and misery. So let's get into this video where Johnny Geezer Scrooge was visited by three apparitions, one from the past, one from the present, and one from the future over the stormy Christmas season.
So, dear friends, lend your ears to a tale spun from frost and shadows, a little story for this festive period. It's the tale of a bitter, twisted fragrance entrepreneur who lived long, long ago in a world unlike ours, a world shrouded in snow and misery. On a stormy Christmas Eve, Johnny Geezer Scrooge was visited by three apparitions, one from the past, one from the present, and one from the grim future. This is the story of that fateful night.
One night he went to sleep before winter solstice, and a ghost visited him on the first night. This ghost was the ghost of Winter Festival past. Yes, that's right, just to upset the wokies, I'm calling it Winter Festival. I don't celebrate Christmas, no, you know. Anyway, what happened is this ghost was like, let's take you back to your childhood, where his father had him working down the pits, and he worked very hard, and then he was in control of all the people down the pits, and he'd take all of that out on his little children workers. Don't worry, there was nobody over 10. They were all little enough to fit through the little caves and everything, and wield the little pickaxes to get all the coal to power the country. Anyway, the ghost then took him to his parents dying and him inheriting all the fortune, and leaving in their will that what they expected is that he had to double this fortune by the age of 20 or he'd lose it all. So he doubled down, he employed more slaves, he kept them warm again off the streets, and then he took him round to some of the houses, well, if you could call them that, some of these, like, they were called council houses or housing association houses with black mould up the walls. I mean, they could use that as food, couldn't they? And then the little ghosty took him to meet this girl he'd always fancied since been very young. But little Johnny Geezer, you know, he wasn't the best looking or the most charming kind of fella. Anyway, he could see her there whilst they were at this dance thing, and she was actually, you know, looking at him with sympathetic eyes, wanting to go over to him, but he was beating some of the staff with sticks, so she decided not to. Anyway, as the ghost took them closer to her to look really deep into her eyes, he could smell a fragrance called Chanel No. 5. This fragrance, it smelt of these magical bubbling soapy aldehydes, this gorgeous lily of the valley, all these other like touches of florals of bright ylang ylang. It just smelt of what could have been if only he'd gone over and talked to her and not started beating the staff. So yes, then the ghost of Christmas past takes him to lying in his bed. A little Johnny Geezer just scoffs, yeah, well, that's why I'm so rich now, isn't it? Didn't have time for love. And he drifts off to sleep. So the next night, he was also visited by a ghost. This ghost was like, alright Johnny Geezer, I'm the ghost of Christmas present, and I'm going to show you what your life is really like right now. So again, he transports him up into the sky. Now Johnny Geezer in modern times, he's bought a company called Best Day Border, and they make perfumes, and it's this, you know, he has a bit of a passion. Well, he did, and then he wanted to make as much kind of cheap nonsense and whatever And during these times he wore a fragrance called Noir, which actually just smelt of ambroxan and a bit of rose and some sugar. It was completely different. But the ghost takes him to another house where Tiny Jimbo lives. And Tiny Jimbo's been working in his factory. He's currently suffering with severe kind of how would you call it, lung problems, and his skin's falling off and that. But in that little house he has a bottle, an old bottle of Noir that he must have pinched at some point. "Little bastard, he's fucking nicking from me," said John Geezer. And the ghost just looks at him and shakes his head and says, "Look closer." And as he gets closer, he picks it up and he sprays it, and he's like, "Where? What is this stuff? It's like magic. It's rose, it's truffle, it's patchouli. Oh my word, it's so good." And then he goes round to all these other houses who've got little presents from Best Day Border and Tim Fordy. and all these little kids are opening their presents, and the parents, and they spray their little perfumes, and they're so disappointed they just start wailing and crying. He's like, "Why are they crying? What's up with them? I've charged them double for their bottles. They should be really happy." And then he realises these aren't the fragrances that they used to love. These aren't this magnificent Tom Ford Noir. Like I say, a dark, beautiful gothic rose, patchouli, the truffles, the little touch of oud, all this magical woody feel. Something that represented these dark times. Just so beautiful and made people smile. Now they just sit there emptily. So yes, so he flashes him back to bed and says, "I want you to think about what you've been doing, Mr. John Geezer." And he drifts off to sleep again. So that is Tom Ford's Noir for Christmas present. The next evening is the ghost of future, and he comes there and he's looking snazzy. He's wearing these things called jeans, skinny jeans, and a t-shirt, and he's got his hair brushed over. He's got a cool curled up beard and that. He looks very good. And he's like, "Yeah man, I'm the ghost of Christmas future, and I'm going to show you what you're going to do to the world, Mr. Scrooge." So he flashes forward all the way through time, and in this time the streets are choking with pollution. The workhouses are back. Everyone is basically working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in a place called Mamazon, which sells his Best Day Lauder products. And he sees people are wearing these other fragrances. Best Day Look, Best Day Border seems to have gone out of business. It's no more, and they're wearing things called One Way Bridge. And there's this great classic fragrance called One Way Bridge Date with a Dame. It's these beautiful musks, these gorgeous kind of soapy feel through it, a tuberose. So it's just some sort of magic, this cherry nod. And he smells it, and it almost takes him back to that girl he fancied. This is what she would wear if she hadn't died working in my perfume factory. And he's overwhelmed with it. I mean, he didn't know she died in his perfume factory. That was just shortly after the present times. And he sees himself in a room crying. Best Day Lauder's gone out of business. They've got entire tankers and oil rigs full of cashmere and ambroxan. It's just not a thing anymore. The world woke up, and he's seeing the little Johnny Geezer aging, shriveled up, counting his last pennies. He failed to meet his parents' task. It's all been a failure. If only he'd gone for some creativity and treated his workers right, paid them a good wage, employed perfumers to create interesting, exciting things, didn't destroy the greats of the past. Maybe he could have been as great as One Way Bridge. But alas, he just watches him crying there. And then the ghost takes him back home and he's like, "Please, Mr. Ghost, how do I prevent this from happening? I know my accent changes every time. What could I do? I don't want that lass to die. I don't want to have my company go under because it's become so generic and boring and useless. What am I supposed to do?" And the ghost just shakes his head. Maybe this will be in the conclusion what Johnny Geezer does. Maybe it won't. Alright, anyway, bye.
And so it was that the tale of Julija Claire reached its sombre close. Alas, the poor man realized, far too late, the shape his life might have taken had he chosen kindness and charity instead of selfish pursuits. On a bitter Christmas morn, with no company but the shadows on his wall, Julija Claire passed into eternity, stricken sorely by the torments of syphilis and gout, ills as cruel and unyielding as the regret that weighed upon his soul. None there were who mourned the man, for he had made no friends in life, and in death his chambers were as desolate as his heart had been. Yet perhaps a glimmer of redemption shone in those final hours, for Julija Claire, though alone, had gathered the strength to bequeath his wealth to noble causes. A benefactor unseen, he became a saviour to the destitute, his coin reaching the needy and the weary who wandered the cruel streets of London. His fortune, in a gesture unexpected, went to the workers he had so cruelly wronged, to make amends for the wages he had stolen, year after year. The sum was vast and made right much of what he had ruined. He invested, too, in the schools of the poor, ensuring that those who followed would not endure the ignorance and want that had hardened his own soul. In a final act of devotion, perhaps born from sorrow, Julija Claire had a statue built in honor of a woman long lost to him, a lady of grace and kindness who had once offered him the love he had foolishly rejected. There, in cold stone, she stood forevermore, a reminder of the life he had turned away, yet cherished at last. And so, as the bells tolled across the frosted streets, a message rang clear to all. Make merry in this festive season, dear friends. Gather close those you hold dear, and waste not kindness, and even our perfume. Remain sweet, unspoiled by greed or neglect. Let this tale stand as a warning to those who would place profit above purpose, who would trample the beauty of creation and life for the sake of gold. A final whisper echoed through the silent halls. It spoke softly but sternly. Goodbye, and let this be your last.
Sadly, that is where the story ends. Johnny Geezer realised too late what his life could have been and how he could have made it better. Sadly, on Christmas morning, he passed away suffering badly from syphilis and gout. Nobody would grieve the loss of this man who died alone. He did, however, have time to leave money in his will to good causes. He benefited all the indie perfume companies in the world and gave money to help the homeless and the needy. Also, as a lasting legacy, he left formulas in the public domain for all the great perfumes he'd reformulated and discontinued. The rest of his fortune went to all his workers to make up for the wages he'd stolen from them over the years and invested in local schools and such like. So everyone out there, have a merry and jolly festive period. Make the most of it and spend time with those you love. And let's hope our favourite perfumes and fragrances are not reformulated to death and cheapened. Let this story be a warning to all of those out there who put profit above creativity, life and happiness. Goodbye.
Is this frickin' thing on? Okay, John, here we go. Just spreading cheer as usual. Here we go. By three apparitions burned. Forget that part. Acid ran clear to all. Syphilis and gout.
That doesn't make sense, John.